Hello and welcome back, everyone. Happy Wednesday. As some of you may have noticed, we missed last Happy Wednesday last week. And so this week, we are going to be doubling the Wednesday and giving it to the Happy, because everyone knows one should take caution when missing Happy Wednesdays, and when you gaze long into the Happy stares back. Okay, so we are going to be covering Tinto Talks number 53, which covers Mercenaries, and Tinto Talks after this, 52, which we missed last week, which is going to be covering, a little bit of a light ice age. And so let's get into things talking about Mercenaries. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tinto Talks. This is a Happy Wednesday, indeed it is, where we tell you about what is going on with our entirely 100% secret game with codename Project Teaser. Of course, we do have the hints from Johan, where he capitalizes things in order to leave breadcrumbs of details, except for Happy Wednesday, which is always rightly and properly capitalized because it is in fact a holiday. This week we'll talk about Mercenaries and how prisoners of war work at the game. Womp womp. Shout out to, not dying in a trench, but instead getting captured. That's much more fun, except it's probably not, except it might be, I'm not sure. As we mentioned in previous Tinto Talks, we have three types of regiments: levies, regulars, and mercenaries. You can, at any point, rearrange an army and move regiments freely between them, no matter what the status of the regiment. Here we do see we appear to have 12, regulars. I assume these are levies, and maybe these cavalry are mercenaries, something like this. The Teuton army has a 1440 men left in the left flank, 545 in the center. Yikes, that's not a lot in the center, and 256 or 2,560 numbers are hard in the right flank, and 373 in the reserves here. Why so few in the center? I'd expect that is where a bulk of the regulars knights are. In total, the army has about 6 cavalry levy regiments, 2 regular, and 9 mercenaries. And so that is in fact what the UI here is telling us. Okay. It's also named the third army. Shout out to threes. Hiring mercenaries. When you hire a mercenary company, you will need to first find a commander that can raise the company for you. This is not a simple choice, as more competent commander will cost more gold, but the more amount of regiments you can raise under mercenaries depends on both the administrative ability of the commander and the amount of possible mercenaries the PoWs of the area has. That makes sense. Mercenary regiments rely on having their soldiers come from PoWs, and if there's not enough soldiers for them in an area, the limit will this will limit the amount of regiments. Interesting. I wonder if the game is going to track. I suppose this means that the game is not tracking where the mercenaries are, who the mercenaries are, if there's a relative level of experience in one area versus the other. Like in Italy might be a place that would be easier to find mercenaries, but I guess that you will get this advantage in the form of advances rather than a regional kind of culture that is lending itself towards being more mercenary oriented. Negative stability in the country with devastation and low control in the location determines how many PoWs are willing to leave and become mercenaries. The type of regiments that a mercenary can raise depend on what type of regiments are commonly available in the area that the mercenaries recruited from. Okay, so we get a little bit of a deviation here. Depends on what regiments are commonly available. So is this meaning regulars, or is there something to do with the mercenaries? But we can continue on. Some types of regiments may be more common than others in an area, and just because you have found a nice 99 admin commander, he may not be able to raise enough of a certain type of regiment you want. Alright, fair enough. The Karl van Durlach, that is 97. That does look very nice. In his administrative capacity, 45 Diplo, 69 War, nice. And he is raising some combination of camp followers, footmen, archers, horsemen, armored horsemen. Interesting. There's a pretty good commander which can lead a pretty big army. Yep, he does seem to be able to lead a big one. I think this is this saying it's 7 in total, or this UI is just kind of funny? Yeah, the UI, you can see here, of course it's work in progress. Everything that they have is work in progress, but you could pick out the white kind of numbers behind there, so there seems to be overlap between the numbers and the symbols, whereas here the overlap is not happening, but okay. Contracts and extensions. When you hire a mercenary, you set a default contract length. At the end of that contract, the mercenaries will stop their service. However, if you are still at war, the contract will be extended another year. Automatically? Interesting. If you wish to terminate a contract in advance, you will need to pay the remaining contracted fee. You can also have auto-extension on contracts and manually extend a contract for another 24 months for an individual mercenary at any time. That seems good. Each new contract or signed or extended has a signing fee that heavily depends on the type of troops you wish to hire and the skill of the commander. We have bribing mercenaries. Ooh, baby. This was a feature, or bribing armies is a feature that was present and very, very cool in Imperator Rome. Shout out to 10 days from today. However, just because a contract is signed does not mean the mercenary will stay loyal for the entire contract. What? Yikes. Another country may come around and just offer more money to buy their loyalty. This is not exactly cheap, but it can be rather useful at times, so you just throw money at it. One alternative, renting out your armies. One alternative to paying gold every month to your regular regiments at peace is to rent them out as mercenaries. You can select your army and put them on the market for a given percentage of your costs, usually above your own costs, as you need to turn a profit after all. If all goes well, you earn gold and your regiments get some nice experience. These armies are listed as possible armies to contract out for any country within range. I imagine the AI will not be very good at, This is an interesting mechanic. I wonder if you can just intentionally go super, super into this. I mean, we assume that something like Switzerland is going to have advantages in this regard, but a playthrough, like, kind of oriented around renting out armies and creating a really nice standing army just to rent it out is kind of fascinating to think about. But this is I mean, like, all right, that's neat. Prisoners. Sometimes you win a battle by overrunning an enemy army. You capture regiments and of the defeated size. Overrun is what players refer to as a stack wipe, which is what happens when you have 10-to-1 odds, or when the other side has 0 morale and you have a larger army. There are multiple ways to deal with prisoners if you don't want to keep them around and feed them. No matter what, though, the prisoners will die off slowly over time. Not like this, as this is not the age of the Geneva Conventions. No, it's not. Although the truth hurts, it's truly not. Through your various abilities, you have ways to deal with the prisoners. First of all, you can attempt to ransom them back to their owners, which will net you some gold and the return of the regiments to their owners. Second of all, you can recruit them to fight as mercenaries for you, but that means you have to pay for them. The advantage of that is they won't fight for your enemy, though. That seems reasonable enough. Thirdly, you could just execute them. That might be a bit frowned upon, so it'll impact your AE. Very cool, but sometimes it might be worth it. Assuming you have to feed them, if you are running out of your ability to feed your own army while carrying prisoners, I assume this is the way you approach that. The fourth option we'll let you know about when we talk about the Nahuatl faith in the future Tinto talks. I think we can infer what that is. I think we can infer that this is the human sacrifice option. Right? Is that the Aztec faith? I know the Aztecs sacrificed their enemies. Hopefully I did not project human sacrifice onto a different faith unintentionally. That would be catastrophic. Alright, but however, if you overrun an enemy with army with prisoners, you will of course free them and take them back, which is of course nice. Very, very cool that they have this interesting mechanic. Like, prisoners generally just don't get handled in game, and they're just having this neat mechanic kind of put in place. It'd be very cool if you have an army that's like fast moving and has a lot of infrastructure, overruns and defeats another army, and then it's packed up with prisoners. They don't want to execute the prisoners because they don't want AE, but then the army gets bogged down and is able to be caught up by another army just as a result of, like, this is something like that tactically, like, on the battlefield, like, seems like an interesting conundrum. Like, do we kill all the prisoners? A very significant issue with, like, paratroopers, like, for example, during D-Day, is when they captured prisoners, they had basically no infrastructure. They were, like, operating out from their backpacks. And so what happens when someone surrenders or you capture a prisoner? And it's like, we say goodbye to the prisoners, what happens? Or we say, Auf Wiedersehen, or what's the French? In any case, you just, like, can't take the prisoner because of the logistical complications that are involved in feeding extra people. And that, you can get this as, like, an emergent gameplay pattern off of that. It does seem really fascinating. However, continuing on, or concluding, as it were, now that we've gone through the core mechanics we have for Project Teaser, the next few weeks we will go through all the changes that have happened during this year, thanks to both your great feedback from internal and external testing. That is very, very good news, this sentence here, in regards to, like, the timeline. If they're done giving like feedback regarding mechanics, that is certainly exciting. After that, it's time to go through the mechanics of different regions, the different situations, and the different international organizations we have. Okay, so it does sound like there's quite a bit more. I assume that they have some sort of timeline that coincides with the ability to disseminate everything with substantive amount of time before release, and so this will be this is good news though in regards to the timeline. But speaking of the timeline, let's go back in history. Let's go back in time to a different happy in order to feed the Wednesday to the happy. We're of course talking about Tinto Talks number 52, which was on the 26th of February, but you are feeling the happy today. Hello and welcome. Here's the capitalism of welcome. Is it we? Is it we who are in fact welcome? Or is it well that is welcome? Like a well, like some water, something you would want to have if you were running out of clean water because of the Ice Age. I don't know where I'm going with that one. Okay, shout out to conspiracy theories. Hello and welcome to another Tinto Talks, the Happy Wednesday, of course, where we spill all the secrets, all of them out of the well from the welcome, about our upcoming game in the Codename Project teaser. Everyone knows this is pronounced not Caesar, but Tizar. Okay, in a game where we simulate hundreds of people, hundreds of millions of people, not all the calamities that that they get exposed to involve warfare, womp womp, or diseases. But what about exploitation? Today we'll talk about Mother Nature, surely the best type of exploitation. We're doing her best to reduce the population regularly. Shout out, sound off, Queen. Mother of Nature. As the widest definition of the Little Ice Age encompasses almost the entire time span of the game, we decided to go with the Maunder minimum, which happened between 1645 and 1750, being the colder phase of the period. We simulate the Little Ice Age with a situation that will affect the northern half of the northern hemisphere, making winters last longer. During the Little Ice Age, food production in the affected areas is lowered, and events and other mechanics happening which will make the experiencing challenge in the mid to late game phase. Very cool. The chill of the Ice Age tests the resilience of our people, forcing rulers to adapt or watch their realm descend into madness or descend into hardship. Whoops, wrong descent. That's the type of a descent you get when you stare into the happy. Whether through careful governance or sheer survival, history will remember how we faced this frozen tribal. Who will survive? I don't know. I don't know whether we will survive or not. We also have a rather in-depth weather system where we will simulate storms and similar phenomena moving across the planet. Note that weather is distinct from climate. We currently have two categories of weather systems, the weather front and the cyclone. We've included in the weather fronts of the monsoons, which are particularly going in one direction, Africa to India from February to June, and in the other direction, Himalayas to the Indian Ocean from October to December. Is not a monsoon, but a Pacific cyclone that is Asia facing. I know that these are all, like, there's an umbrella term that captures all of these, and they all have different names. Hurricane, cyclone, typhoon. It came up just the other day on stream. But we have a cyclone in Dundalk Bay in the weather system. It's currently at Dundalk Bay, heading toward Kendal. The overall strength has been decreased from its maximum and is now classified 5 hurricane, or is it a cyclone? It is currently affecting Dunmask and all these places, huge number of places. It has the following effects on the terrain and precipitation: wind damage and sandstorm. In addition, the areas are vulnerable to storm surge. All right. Ireland might suffer some weather fronts during the year. Okay. Not all weather systems that spawn are the same strength, and they can change their strength as they move across the map. The strength of the weather system... Man, are they really going hard in the paint with weather? The strength of the weather system directly impacts the benefits and penalties that gives locations. This is like so... This is some depth, baby. Fronts are usually a wide and weather patterns, bringing rain and oceans into the bringing rains from the oceans into the lands. This has some negative impacts on armies and navies, but it will provide a large food production boost. Here we see weather front past, which is giving extra food production, not minus food production like a drop might, and extra naval attrition, and army attrition, which makes sense. That was a huge rainstorm. ... That's true. In 1337 in July. It sounds like they just let the game run for a few months and it was just an average rainstorm, not a huge rainstorm, but okay. Okay, fine. Sure. Cyclones, or hurricanes, as they are known in the northern hemisphere, or aren't they typhoons if they're in Asia or hitting Asia, are a more narrow weather system, which causes a lot of damage due to high wind speeds. Stay safe, everyone out there in Australia right now. Wind damage we got raw materials output, which is going to give -9%. Monthly prosperity, yikes, -0.6. Maritime presence, it gets reduced, allowing you to exert less control over the area because you can't propagate your maritime presence. Of course, this makes sense. Minus food production. This seems like a rather mild modifier for a hurricane, but okay. Huge naval attrition. I think that has a big number, right? This is a regular weather thing. This is a hurricane, but okay. Army attrition. Conveniently, on the same day. You trying to say something? We welcome well weather drought spill. Okay. Okay. Let's get kind of going. In deserts with cold or arid climate, there will sometimes be beneficial rains through a weather system that passes through, but instead you get sandstorms, and this will give some pretty serious negative-looking modifiers. It looks like the ratio of Navy and Army tradition, though, is quite a bit different. Here we have 1/5. Here we have 1/2. Of course, this makes sense. We see a bigger maritime presence penalty over here relative to the naval attrition from the sandstorm. So it looks like they put some thought into if these modifiers should be different in this type of stuff. Also, more raw materials output penalty. I don't like sand. Neither do I. It's coarse and it gets rough and it's irritating. It gets everywhere. Somehow, the Star Wars references returned. In any location with severe weather where a front passes through, there will be snow instead of heavy rain. Which, this is looking pretty significant. Raw materials output costs -38%. That is way bigger than the percents kind of listed up here, -9%. This type of thing. Food production is super down. Huge Navy and Army attrition. Notably, the attrition here is even. Also very big minus maritime presence. So much more Army tradition or negative Army attrition relative to the other one. We see volcanoes. Man, this is shaping up. There are certain locations which contain volcanoes that are not entirely dormant. Good old Pompeii. We're talking about the volcano, not the guy. Member of the Third Triumvirate. Never forget Crassus, the man whose greed know no bounds. At any point, at one point of them can erupt, much like Crassus's wealth, and spewing out long strings of lava and enormous clouds of ash that leaves a path of destruction in its wake, causing huge devastation to the location they were in. You know what's interesting about how Crassus died? This was the richest man in Rome, and the way he died wasn't the way the story we're about to tell, but the story we're about to tell is more interesting and is like the legend of how Crassus died. But he was captured in Scythia, and because he had such a lust and a desire to drink, or what's the metaphor? His thirst for wealth was so insatiable. We're talking about as in wealth, as in welcome, as in the thing that you spill. We're talking about wealth. His lust for wealth, his thirst for wealth was so insatiable that he was executed by pouring gold down his throat. Now, historically speaking, that's probably not how he actually died, but, that's the story of how he died. Shout out to him. And not Pompey, for whom the town was named after, but he lost to Caesar, so we don't really care about Pompey. Everything's about Caesar, the surviving member of the Triumvirate, except for 10 days from now. Never forget. It will ruin RGOs, destroy buildings, kill a lot of people, and reduce prosperity dramatically. Afterwards, there's a small boost to food production due to volcanic soil for a few decades. We get expanding raw materials time and plus food production. Very cool. Little bit of extra minerals and stuff in the thing. It seems like that, man, they're going deep with some of this stuff. Earthquakes. A large part of the world is prone to earthquakes. While we do have famous historical earthquakes likely to happen, we also have a small chance that an area with earthquake risk can get one. Similar to volcano, it will destroy buildings and kill people, but earthquakes will usually not affect just a single location, but many adjacent ones as well. But not as much. I live in Southern California, and the way it works is if you're not right near the fault line, it's not super, super bad, even if the earthquake's really big. But if the earthquake's big and you're near the fault line, you get to watch the earth go make a wave. The earth becomes like water during an earthquake, kind of. So that is some spooky stuff. Sadly, there are some locations that are in the awkward position of being in an earthquake zone and having a volcano. Yikes! Shout out to Naples. Here's a volcano present that may or may not erupt. That's not comforting, but also earthquake zone. The tectonics here are unstable and may experience earthquakes. In fact, I think often the two will coincide because volcanoes happen both at hotspots and also where plates, right? Or is it just hotspots? Damn, it's been a while since we took geology. Not the best place for a city, certainly not. Next week, we'll be talking about how mercenaries work in Project Caesar, except we won't, because we just talked about how mercenaries work, because that was on the Wednesday. That was the we. We welcome Wednesday weather, welcome W-E, we, spill, blood, Crassus, gold, down, throat. Have a happy Wednesday, everyone. Bye-bye now.